call this meeting to order tonight. Hopefully you signed in and got an agenda back there. Board members, if you'd like to take a minute and look over the agenda and make a motion to adopt the agenda as is.
I'll make a motion to adopt the agenda as presented.
I'll second.
All in favor? Okay, motion has carried. We're going to go ahead and do some commendations of our students. Mr. Murray, would you mind going first?
Good evening, everybody. I'd also like to, before we get started, introduce our new vice principal. We're very grateful to have Mr. Book. And you're going to start off with a commendation for our K-3 student.
So our K-3 student is Jaden Ponce. Jaden, you want to come on up? Okay, Jaden. Mrs. Fisher said, Jaden Ponce is a hardworking student, and though he struggles to focus some of the time, still manages to stay caught up in her class while playing each sport he can, and in such a determined way. He has improved so much since the beginning of the year, and I know that he can improve so much more by the end of it. And Mr. Murray says, Jaden's hard work is demonstrated by the growth of his reading fluency. His score is increased by 23 words per minute, which in the 12 weeks of school this year is about twice of the average rate of growth. And I would just have to say that he's a very valuable part of our yearbook club as well. So, congratulations, Jaden.
And our 4th to 5th grade student of the month is Carmen Rodelo. Come on up. Carmen is a member of our Bullpup leadership team, and her teacher, Mrs. Olson, who's here tonight, says that she's the epitome of a young scholar, and it is a pleasure to nominate her for Student of the Month. I'm overjoyed to celebrate Carmen and all the amazing that she is. She is a leader in our class in showing RESPECT and R, respect. Carmen is constantly showing the safety, responsibility, and respectfulness that helps her and our classroom meet goals and have fun. Each other. Carmen is amazingly kind, patient, and understanding, and seeks others' perspectives. S, self. Carmen is clearly proud of who she is, confident, and when unsure, not afraid to advocate for herself. P, property. Carmen is respectful to our materials and encourages others in her work on leadership to be respectful to our school property as well. E, environment. Carmen shows understanding and compassion for all things around her. She is resourceful and responsible. C, collaboration. Carmen can be counted on to anchor a group or lead a conversation. She shows self-regulation when working in different cooperative learning situations. And T, thoughts. Carmen is attentive to other ideas and never judgmental. She listens to others' thoughts and incorporates them into her own work in an honest and respectful way. She's willing to hear her thoughts and contribute even when it feels like an academic risk. It has been a true pleasure to teach Carmen, and I am incredibly excited to honor her as Nyssa Elementary Student of the Month. So we also have the pleasure of recognizing a parent of the month, and that is Naomi Rich. Naomi, would you like to come on up? Hi. Okay, we've got a couple comments from a couple different people, and I'm going to hand it back over to you there. Our music teacher, Ms. Van Corbach, says that Naomi is a positive support to NES. She is ready to jump in and help where needed. She was helpful to me when I asked PTO to help the music program purchase some new boom whackers. She is efficient and has Nyssa Elementary's best interest at heart. And I would say, Naomi, you've seen we've seen parent participation multiply with your efforts. You've successfully piloted all our major community fundraising events, including the Fall Carnival, the Mountain County Spelling Bee, our new playground equipment, holiday gifts, student rewards, staff appreciation. You rarely say no, and we're fortunate to have such a partner.
And then I would like to say that you're Wonder Woman. You're a mom, a substitute, the PTO president, and the person that our school counts on when needed. Thank you for spreading yourself so thin to make sure that our students and the staff have everything that we need. We could not do our jobs without you.
And our staff member of the month is Emily Olson. Okay. Emily teaches one of our 5th grade classrooms, and Ms. Van Korbach, our music teacher, says that Emily has been very supportive to me in my new position. For NES, she's always happy to answer my questions. In addition, she cares deeply for her students and works hard to meet them where they're at. And I would say just something, I recently had an opportunity to go in and observe in Emily's class. And, you know, I can remember, like probably all of us, studying for math exams and memorizing procedures to follow to get the right answer. On a math exam, and more often than not, I didn't really understand what I was doing. I was just doing it to get the right answer. Really, any more than I understand how my cell phone works. But not very much. But I recently sat in on a math lesson in Emily's class, and it was on multiplication of decimals. 0.4 times 0.2. Pretty easy problem, right? Just do the multiplication and move the decimal point. But that's just kind of the math. That's just kind of the answer. But do we really understand what's happening when we're doing that? What does it mean to take 2 tenths or 4 tenths? What does it look like? Can you draw it? If you can, that's conceptual understanding, and it's far deeper than just doing the math. And that's what the students in her class are being asked to do on a regular basis, and that's teaching. And I commend her for providing that level of understanding and that gift to our students. Good.
And so I'd just like to say that Emily is an amazing addition to the Nyssa Elementary School. I've had the privilege of working with her for 3 years. She goes above and beyond for her students, her coworkers, and her school. And I'd just like to say thank you, Emily, for being an inspiration to everyone, including myself. You made me a better teacher. Congratulations.
Mr. Cleaver?
The middle school would like to introduce Yesenia Gomez as the middle school student of the month. I'm going to give her a medal, and it's because she's a spectacular scorekeeper for basketball. So everybody doesn't know. I don't think we realize how good that is. Roger Hunter obviously ran our scoreboard for a really long time. You know, Mr. Hunter, and one of the first things he said, we're playing Vail, and it's a really intense game. People are yelling and screaming, and she's Johnny on the spot. He does a really great job, and he really appreciates that we have a middle school student that's capable of doing it as well as anybody around. So there's going to be a lot of things that are reflective of that. Mr. Hunter has the first one. Yesenia's a great student to have in class. She wants to learn, asks intelligent questions, is definitely a positive influence on the students around her. She raises the tone of the class, which is pretty cool. She's also good at maintaining the right balance in her group between socializing and focusing on the task at hand, both which are important. She contributes outside the classroom too. I've been grateful to have her as such a reliable bookkeeper at the basketball games. That's from Mr. Hunter. Mr. Draper had these wonderful things to say. Yesenia is definitely one of the most outstanding students I've had in my classroom this year. Every day, Yesenia comes with a smile and a positive attitude, and always has an impact on her other students because of her magnetic personality seems to cheer everybody up. Yesenia is kind to others. She's hardworking and she's consistently friendly to her peers. Yesenia, you're such an awesome young lady, and you definitely deserve this award. Congratulations. You definitely be nice. Pretty cool. Pretty awesome stuff. There's lots of other stuff on here. Here's one from Mr. Carlton. Yesenia is a student who's dedicated to learning and is willing to take the risks that other students won't. She is typically a cheerful student who is kind to others and is willing to help others even when it's inconvenient. It's been a joy to have Yesenia in class, and knowing that she'll give her best effort every time she's asked to do something. She's a quiet leader who other students look up to. She's a friend to all. Yesenia, keep working hard and helping others. It's a joy to have you in class. Congratulations for being our student of the month. You're a wonderful young lady. Thank you.
Thank you, high school.
Alrighty. So I think every principal probably thinks they have the best students, but we really do. This student, she's a senior, 4.0, excellent attendance. But what probably impresses me the most is she just humbly and quietly goes about doing good and making our school and the world a better place. And so, Emma, Roman, so I'm going to read, I have like 7 teachers, but I only read 3. So, the first one's from our librarian, Mrs. Cleaver. It says, "What could I say about the remarkable Emma Romans? She is one of the most soft-spoken, kind-hearted, intelligent, and very talented young ladies that I've had the pleasure of getting to know in her time at NHS. She is very gifted in art and has literally left her mark on our building. Now when you enter the library, you'll be greeted with a joyful creation, from this cute little bulldog reading a book to this wonderful tree blooming with books of many colors. No detail has been spared, and I have enjoyed her company, giggles, intense stares, and singing each day as her art has come to life. I am happy to know her. Thank you, Emma, for all you do behind the scenes at NHS." And I don't know if they can put it up, but we have a picture of the mural. But this is a mural that she painted just inside the library door at the high school as part of her senior project. And it's been so much fun watching it come to life. You know, it started out with, and they took out the bulletin board, and so you have the discolored spots, and then from that it went to pencil drawing and just watching each step of the way. And anyway, it was kind of one of the highlights of my day was kind of checking in to see how it was going. Mrs. O'Connor says, "Emma is a quiet but self-assured, independent student who is a highly deserving candidate as a student of the month. She shows the initiative and drive of every successful individual. I currently have Emma in career transitions, and she is proactive in getting and finishing assignments early. For her career, she is interested in becoming an illustrator. With her love and talent in art, she chose for her project to create a mural at the high school and the library. She created a design and then went to work drawing and painting the mural. She spent many more than the 15 hours required to complete the task well, and we have a great mural to show for it. Emma will do well in whatever she chooses. Good job, Emma." Children will comment. And the last one, it's a little lighter. It's Mr. Sapp. And of course, you know Mr. Sapp, so he says this with much affection. He says, "Emma is a legendary character. She is as smart as she is goofy." That's his words, not mine. "She is as smart as she is goofy. She is very hardworking, and she always can be counted on to do what she is supposed to do. She is one of the finest artists we have had in our school in some time. She is very kind and compassionate of her classmates, and she is polite and gracious with her teachers. Emma has made quite an impact in this over her time here, from painting a wonderful mural in the library to all her extracurricular participation. We are very blessed to have Emma in class. Also, Infinity, Emma and I are the best of friends, so I may be a little biased." That's by Mr. Sapp. But I just, I'm thinking, wow, excellent attendance, 4.0, valedictorian, but it's that the character behind that, just inclusive and is truly seeking ways of doing good. Her only flaw is that she's a senior, so we have 5 more months, and then she's gone. So, anyway, did the picture work? No? Okay. So, you'll have to come by the library and see the picture. It's got the bulldog, he's reading, it's got the tree in the back with all of the books, and Some people say that the bulldog's too cute, but I think it's perfect. So, have exchanged it as a room size, and I will let you have that. And congratulations.
We have some visiting patrons. Oh, thank you so much. Those of you who got an award, if you could step out in the hall, we have a photographer here that will take your picture for the paper.
Sorry I didn't take her from you.
It's all right.
Do we need to wait a minute to get?
Well, he was gonna try to show a picture of the girl, but I don't think
No, I need to get Tim Hoyt.
he's ready. He's on.
I think he's just waiting for you to announce him.
Okay, our first point, person visiting is Tim Hoyt from Quest CPA about our audit. Hello, Tim.
Okay, is it on me now?
It's on you.
Awesome. Can you guys all hear me fine?
Yes.
All right, perfect. Well, thank you. I appreciate you giving me the time to present tonight. I figured I thought I would start by addressing the elephant that I just brought into the room real fast. Yes, the mustache is new. Yes, I have been informed I cannot pull it off, and therefore, yes, it is only temporary. So, just wanted to answer all questions ahead of time. I'm better with that. So, just a brief overview real fast. The audit went very well. We appreciate Crystal's hard work getting everything ready for that. There is, as she can attest, there is a lot to do for it. And every year, audits are getting more and more complicated because of the standards that we, as auditors, have to follow. And so it seems like there is more and more that has to be furnished and more things that we have to look over. And so we appreciate her working with us and putting forth the effort to make sure that everything is in good shape. So thank you, Crystal. Brief, kind of a real quick timeline for how this presentation will go. Similar to the presentation last year, I'm just going to go over some of the audit reports, the actual reports that we as the auditors furnish. And then that will be kind of the first section. The second section will be more talking a little bit about finances, the financial performance of the school and where we ended up for the year. And again, I've got sort of a presentation format that I'll follow, but please feel free to interrupt with any questions you might have as we're going through. You may need to raise a hand or something, just make sure that I actually hear you if you do have a question. Otherwise, I'll just kind of go right into it. So just to make sure, we have copies of the audit report in front of us?
Yes.
Yes, okay, perfect, all right. So I will give page numbers, we'll go at least to that level of detail. Try not to go too long or too boring. I know you have a lot going on, but it is important to discuss some of the higher notes here of the audit. So first off on page 1, don't have to dive too far into it yet. Page 1 is the independent auditor's report. Now this report, if you have a photographic memory or if you just studied it as well as we might have since last year, you'll see that the audit report is changed quite a bit. It's a lot longer than it used to be. This again it has to do with the standards that I mentioned, always changing. But the bulk of the audit report says the same thing. We issue our audit opinion here, and then we outline the responsibilities of us as the auditor, and of management over the financial aspects of the school. And so about halfway down through page 1, you see unmodified opinions. The official audit opinion that we expressed is unmodified, which just means that there were no issues that we came across. It means that the financial statements are materially accurate and that they can be relied on by you as the board, by the state, and by any other pertinent users of the financial statements. So again, that just means that's our stamp of approval, everything is in good shape. So no concerns there. The next report I'm going to briefly go over is all the way on page 61. All the following reports are all towards the very back of the financial statements here. So page 61 is the auditor's report on internal control over financial reporting and compliance. What this report says is that as part of the audit, as we were planning and performing some of the audit procedures, we look at what sorts of internal control are in place, what kind of authorization or oversight is there, as well as things like what kind of documentation do we have, things like that. And so we look at all of those internal controls. We look at the processes, the policies in place. What this report says is that we as the auditors were not engaged to officially express an opinion on the internal controls, but if there was an issue, this report is where we would bring it before the board and describe that issue. There were no issues noted, and so that is good news. Again, officially we can't say it was good, but no problems there. Next report, two pages forward, page 63. This report is the report on compliance over each major program. Speaking of federal programs. So this report has to do with the single audit, which is required if the school spends over $750,000 in federal awards in a single year. And so this report just says that the single audit was performed, and we looked at these major programs as part of the audit, and there were no issues noted here as well. And then finally, the last report is on page 67, so 4 pages forward. Now, page 67, this report is one that's required by the state of Oregon. The state of the Oregon minimum standards has a list of additional procedures we as the auditors need to perform as part of the audit. Just things that are sort of state specific, things that the state want us to look at. And so we have them outlined here, the bullet points right there on page 1. Those are some of the items that we've looked at. And again, this is like the internal control report where we don't actually express an opinion. So what this report just says is that we looked at these items and there was nothing significant enough that we needed to bring it before the board. So again, no concerns there. So with that, those are the 4 reports, the separate reports that we issue as the auditors. Those are really, those are our deliverable. Those are what we present to the school. Everything else in this packet, which is 68 pages long, comes from the school. It's all the school's information. And so again, I'm going to briefly talk about that, starting on page 15. So we're going back up toward the top. So again, just kind of a summary on how the school performed for the year. And this portion, it's very similar to last year, what we presented on. I'm just going to briefly talk about the general fund and the summary of the non-major funds as well. So page 15 is a statement of revenues, expenditures, and changes in fund balance. What this report is, you can think of it like an income statement. This is, honestly, of all the other financial statement pages, this is probably the most important one because it shows the data of what money came into the school for the year, what money went out, and then at the very bottom line there shows our ending fund balance. And as a reminder, that fund balance is what we have left over at the end of the year to carry forward to cover future expenses. So briefly, here with the general fund, if you look at the third number from the bottom, the net change in fund balances just means our overall profit or loss for the year in the general fund. So you can see that the general fund increased by about $780,000. So it once again experienced a good financially successful year. And so that leaves the general fund with an ending balance of just under $6 million, $5.95 billion, which again, that only goes, it's only useful as far as we have context for that number itself. What does that really mean? And so we look at what we like to call the operating reserve. How much of that, how many months worth of expenditures does that 5.9 million cover? And so it's a rough estimate. We just look at all the expenditures for the year in the general fund, divide it by 12 to get our average monthly expenditure, and say how many months is that. And so running that simple calculation, the ending fund balance of just under 6 million it is about a 5-month operating reserve. And so again, this is an increase from last year. Last year was about 4.5 months. It's an excellent spot to be in for the school. We don't want to see that get too low, because if it does get too low, that means we have to worry about cash flow issues. Are we going to have enough money in the bank to pay for the next month's expenditures? We also don't necessarily want to see it too high, because we want to be spending that money for education, to improve the school, and things like that. And so our recommendation is anywhere from around 3 to 5 months is where we like to see that operating reserve. It's a good healthy spot to be in. And so again, the Nyssa school district is right on track with that. So well done there. No recommendations on anything there. The next column over in the financial statements there is the non-major funds, non-major governmental funds. This column is a summary of all the other funds that the school has. I believe the number is around 30 other funds, and these funds are all either local funds, state funds, or federal funds, which are required to be kept track of separately from the general maintenance and operations fund. And so those funds are all doing well. They're all in good shape. They're performing as we would expect them to, and so there are no issues there. We're not going to go into detail over every individual of 30 funds. That would take a while and probably not interest most people here. So just wanted to give that brief overall summary of those other funds and say that there were no issues with those either. And so that really concludes the financial portion of the presentation here, which also is a conclusion to everything that I had prepared that I was hoping to speak on. So again, thank you for the time. Thank you for allowing me to present tonight. We appreciate you allowing us to perform the audit. And at this time, I'd like to open it up for any questions you might have for me. Anything I may have missed or any clarification of what I went over.
I think there are no questions. Thank you for your hard work.
Oh, alrighty. Sounds good. Well, thank you very much again. I will, if you do have questions, please feel free to reach out to me. Crystal's got my information. She's got a phone, email, so she can get a hold of me. So if you do have anything, always happy to answer those questions. So please feel free to reach out if you do.
Thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
All right. Thank you all very much. You have a good night.
Thanks, Tim.
See you. Good job, Crystal.
Thank you for all your hard work getting ready for them.
You're welcome.
You can have a day. Okay, do we have someone here from the Ontario Recreation Department? Come on up. Tell us who you are. Oh, there's that.
There's the picture of the library.
There's the library. Oh, that's cute.
There it is.
That is cute. You did a great job.
Sorry.
No, you're fine. You're fine. Fine. Board members, thank you for giving me the time to present to you today. I'm going to be brief in what I'm here for. All the information that we have regarding this project and what we're doing is available on our website, and I can get you as much information as you'd like about it. I'm here specifically tonight to ask for you to pass a resolution of support. What this is nothing more than a glorified letter of support. But what it allows us to do is when we approach legislation this year, in 2023, to whatever committee our legislative concept goes to, and if it gets to the House and Senate, we would like to be able to explain to them that we have these resolutions passed in our region, area, county, local school districts, cities, and even on the other side of the border in Idaho. All these resolutions helping us be a little bit more legitimate in our support for a legislative concept that we have submitted this year. A legislative concept is LC 1465. It's declaring a state of emergency in Ontario, more specifically our border side of our region there. And it is for $4.5 million at the state legislature this year. So we are hoping to show a large rate of support, and why I'm here tonight to ask for you to pass that resolution. Again, there's no financial or legal responsibility of the Nyssa School District if they pass it. It's nothing more than showing you have legitimized a actual resolution that is supportive of our project and our legislative concept. We specifically, as it relates to the project itself, are about 40% away in our funding goal from completing our project. So we're up to the point of having all of our construction documents done, ready to submit permits to our city here in January, and then following that, ready to start building. Unfortunately, yeah, we do have a 40% gap funding missing there, and then of course, that is just phase 2 of a 6-phase plan in Ontario on Lions Park to take advantage of an area that's kind of been closed to our community for a long time. An area that can serve, and we do know serves, a much larger region that does include Nyssa residents, Vail residents, and residents from the other side of the border there. So again, I'm here tonight specifically just to ask for you to pass a resolution of support for the Ontario Community Recreation Center project. Thank you. If you have any questions, I'm here to answer them.
And how large is your recreation center project?
Can you give us a brief outline?
Oh, yeah, of course. Yep. So the 6-phase plan was designed by the Friends of the Aquatic Center in 2017. The Ontario Rec District was voted in 2018 and took over that project. Before that, it had probably bounced through about 5 different committees from the City of Ontario and local grassroots efforts. We took it over in 2018, and that's been our one focus, one of our main projects in Ontario, amongst any other of the facilities that we've taken over from the city, which do include the tennis courts, skate park, the old aquatic center, the splash park, the offices as well, and then all of the equipment and supplies that go with the recreation department. As you may or may not have known, they cut that department from the city in 2018. That's why our recreation district was formed. And so with that, we've been able to secure the majority of the properties that they use for the recreation department prior to 2018. And more specifically, we've made it a goal of ours to bring back these amenities in Ontario. I myself sit on an Eastern Oregon Border Board here in Ontario, and that is specifically, again, trying to bring back our local economy and make it competitive with Idaho. And one of the foundational issues that we do see is these amenities that bring in young families to our area, that bring in, future or available working pool people that can kind of go into jobs in our area. That is one of our foundational issues here. And unfortunately, because we are so remote and we sit on the border of Oregon and Idaho, and we do compete with Idaho, and we lose a lot of our funding and a lot of our local expenses, or a lot of our local revenue does go to Idaho or leaves our state for amenities in Idaho. We lose a lot of those families from Oregon to Idaho as well. Whether that be political or whatever it may be, we do lose them. And that again results in people either just coming here to work, coming here to go grocery shopping, or otherwise been out living here and helping our communities grow. And so part of that is really trying to build these amenities. So we are working with the Eastern Oregon Border Board, and part of the reason we are going to all these local communities as well, to try to show that there's just a large range of support. And Ontario does have the ability to manage that. The Ontario Rec District does have a tax base of just our Ontario school district boundary. That can grow. Obviously, it is voter approved, so it would have to go to the Nyssa and Vail voters for that approval. But again, we've actually identified a route prior to going to that phase that we think our rec district can grow to Nyssa and Vail. Because there's already people in this town that put a lot of time into local sports. There's already a lot of people in Vail that put a lot of time into local sports without being paid a dime. They do it on their own dime. And we want to be able to help that. We want to be able to support that, grow that, and make that competitive with Idaho. We want to make this side of the state be a little bit stronger in relation to Idaho. And so this project, which is a 6-phase plan right now, is focusing on phase 2, which is finishing up our pool project. That's $2.4 million. We're at $1.4 million raised for it. The entire project also includes the renovation of the tennis courts right beside the building, a new skate park on the side of it. Of course, we have our splash park there, so the pool will tie right into that. And then a peer center. That peer center is specifically for the at-risk youth that we do see in Ontario and in our local area. In fact, the majority of my splash park staff is here from Nyssa High School, funny enough. But the peer center, more specifically, is looking to kind of leverage funding from the state. So we brought in the Oregon Youth Corps 2 years ago, which works with the Oregon Training and Employment Consortium and Eastern Oregon Workforce Board. Those students or those youth who are considered at risk need to graduate high school to be in this program. So they need to be working towards that, whether that's the Oregon Online Academy or through some of the alternative routes to our local high school. But it allows them to be employed with us throughout the summer. So they get paid through the state, but they work full-time jobs with us in the summertime. And that's everything in our community, from taking care of our parks, mowing, edging, picking up trash, just having a local responsibility in our community to keep it nice. They run our splash park. They set up all of our facilities for all of our programs, which includes a 800-kid soccer program that brings in thousands of parents every single spring to our soccer program as well. That is all set up and maintained by the Oregon Youth Corps in Ontario that runs through the Ontario Rec District. And that peer center is designed to try to pull these kids in after school and get them into a facility that is nice. Whether that be we have some small games, that could be pool, that could be air hockey, that could be video games, that could be whatever it may be. The limiting factor there is getting the resources and the funding we have in Ontario to those kids, because there's a stigma around those kids not wanting to separate themselves from their peers and let others know that they are struggling, they are homeless, they are in poverty, they are living out a vehicle with their parents. And this funding is in Ontario for those youth and for our local area. However, we have to get those kids in the building, we have to get them those resources. And that's the first goal of that peer center. And then, of course, provide them opportunities to work. And again, we understand that foundation, that help with our local school district and the Oregon Department of Education, who's also kicking in funding to this peer center, as well as Community in Action in Ontario, are all in support of this part of the actual project, which is the next phase following the pool. And then, of course, the last phase of it, which does include a gymnasium addition on Lions Park there, and then just some nice shade structures around the park itself. So that is the 6-phase plan of the Ontario Community Rec Center.
How much will this all cost together?
We've been given the estimate of $4.5 million. That's again why the state billed in for $4.5 million. But we have saved up, 1.4, raised 1.4 so far. So we're trying to build up that contingency there. We haven't quite yet put out phases 3, 4, 5 yet, or 6, 3, 4, 5, or 6 for any type of architectural or engineering yet. We have specifically focused on the pool, one phase at a time.
So you're focusing right now on the pool?
On phase 2,
And
correct.
you're hoping to start construction on that one?
The really, I guess, eager side of me, we want to be ready to start construction in March. Yeah, that'll take about 6 to 8 months, 6 to 9 months with construction there. And again, that $2.4 million does include contingency, labor and material increases there as well. And we got really lucky with our architects and engineers and our 15-member team in really anticipating some of this huge inflation that we were going to see in our most recent couple of years. So, yeah. Any other questions?
It sounds really exciting. Nyssa hasn't had a public pool in 40 years. So, yeah, it's been that long. I mean, I'm sure that you hauled your kids to Ontario for swimming lessons, just like
And it's
I
an
did.
outdoor pool?
It will be an outdoor pool to begin with an option to go to an indoor pool. It just will not be brick and mortar with HVAC. It'll be what you see in Cascade, Idaho, Twin Falls, which is a dome. It's just a lot more affordable. And again, we aren't moving to that indoor option. That's the biggest difficulty with pools, is none of them generate any revenue. And so we're trying to, on our front end, make sure that we cover that sustainability focus first and foremost. So we've gone with an outdoor option to begin with. We passed a local increase in our TOT tax, which is for anyone staying in our hotels, motels, or our new RV spot there under 30 days. So that increase of 1%, 75% of that will go to us, 25% will go to our fairgrounds. So we'll have another $90,000 going into contingency every single year for future costs of maintenance and operations, and we budget about $250,000 to $350,000 a year as well for that facility. So we're really trying to make sure we kind of have a double coverage there when it comes to maintaining the outdoor pool first, and then really looking at projections for indoor costs. They are pretty high, roughly $550,000 to $600,000, and they're only trending upward in the next 2 years.
So we need to vote on whether we support this, or is that what we need to do?
Yeah, so there's no obligation, financial or legal, by the district to do so. It's just they can say that it's the district believes it's a positive thing for our community.
So we just need to pass the resolution.
So there's no resolution we have, just to
I
say
have
we
it
make a
written
motion.
in.
Yeah, yeah.
There's a resolution.
Someone make a motion to promote this, or second?
Second.
All in favor? Alright.
Thank you very much. I appreciate the
Do
time.
you need me to sign this and give it to you right now?
Sure. Yeah. Pretty quick. I'll take that. Did you need it?
Superintendent.
Okay.
I'll
Okay. Yeah.
Okay.
That's fine. Okay. Thank you very much.
Yeah, there's some.
That's a lot of money. Thank you for your presentation.
Thank you, Andrew.
Okay, Nyssa. We are really looking forward to finding out what's going on in the district, or at least the high school.
Lauren, before you start, what happened at the boys' basketball game? Oh, you were there.
We lost by 11.
We lost by 11.
Yeah, and it was tied 22-22 at half. The first half, the good news is that he played well.
Sorry, thank you, Lauren.
Hi guys, thanks for having me again. For you guys that don't know me, my name is Lauren Stapp and I'm the ASB president at the high school. I'm also a member of the pep club. Today I would like to give you guys the wrestling schedule. Last month I gave you the boys and girls basketball schedules. I would also like to invite you guys to this upcoming pep assembly this Friday, December 16th at 1 p.m. We will be having a fun and lively pep assembly, which includes an ugly sweater competition. Please let us know if you can be there by emailing Sarah Sapp, or you can call her. Let us know who is available to attend. We would like to introduce you to our student body, and if you are able to come, we invite you to wear an ugly sweater and join in on the festivities. I should also mention that the following pep assembly, the student council has planned a super fun activity day. You do not have to stay for all the fun, but we would like to introduce you to our student body. As a pep club, we have been busy and planned a winter spirit week for this week. Pep club's goal is to make spirit days as inclusive and simple for everyone, so that we can get maximum participation. Our spirit days today was red or green day. Tomorrow you can wear flannel or fleece. Wednesday is tinsel toast, which is like Christmas socks. And then Thursday is too cozy, which is pajamas, and then Friday is our ugly sweater day. And if you don't follow the high school's Instagram page, you're missing out. I have included the high school's Instagram handle on your invitations. We have been using the Instagram platform to communicate and advertise some cool things happening at the school. Thanks for your time. I hope to see you on Friday. Also, band has a concert tomorrow at 7, and choir has a concert on Thursday at 7. And student council is volunteering Thursday with Help in the Hole. Thanks again.
Thank you.
Do you mind if I try and get this quick up while I'm doing your?
That's okay, that's fine.
We had some issues this afternoon.
I have walked outside.
We had issues this afternoon. So.
I just have a quick question for high school. London, do you know how the girls' basketball fundraiser for Citrus Fruit did? Do either of you guys know? I heard it was pretty successful for the oranges.
Yes.
It's
Really, really good.
Yeah, that's great. Glad to hear it.
Okay, next we will have our superintendent report from Dr. Johnson.
Thank you. I always enjoy seeing the students and the parents and those who are recognized, and we appreciate our student body president. Lauren, you do a really good job in keeping us all informed. Just want to draw attention to the board as you have my report in front of you. Enrollment, I want to make sure that I give you kind of some historical month by month comparison to last month. So you can see we've increased the enrollment by 4 students this month. So, the comings and goings, looks like the elementary was the reason for that. I also attended the Oregon Law Conference this past week. It was a really good conference held in Eugene. They do that every year. For the past few years, they have not done it in person. So this year, it was really nice to be able to gather with other administrators across the state to listen to the sessions that are given. The Oregon Law Conference is basically a bunch of attorneys who come and talk to you about all the legal issues, or many of the legal issues that are very important for us to consider as superintendents and principals, and everything from transgender issues, how schools are working with some of the complexities surrounding that, to contracts, writing successful contracts with your teachers' unions, special ed law. It is often a challenge, policy and financial updates from the state legislature. There was one titled, How Not to Get Fired, Administrator Rights and Obligations Under Oregon Law. That was one I just attended the last one. Mr. McDonald and I attended that together. It was a good one, led by Nancy Hungerford. She's a very well-known attorney in the state of Oregon. Defends, works with districts, talking about crises that come to students, at schools, and how to deal with different crises that come across our desks. And so I really appreciated that opportunity to visit with, learn from and visit with attorneys there, as well as colleagues across the state who deal with different issues. On the transgender issue, that was one of the sessions that I attended, and I just want to address perhaps the community, because I myself, and I think some of the board members, often we deal in rumors that get spread around, or people misunderstand something, and so I just want to address this and make sure it's in the minutes that we have. Transgender it's a situation that we all have to deal with. We have students who are in identifying as transgender, and so one of the things that has come to me is people are saying, I heard that you are going to take one of the locker rooms over there and make it a transgender locker room. Well, if you stop and think about that for just a second, that doesn't really make any sense to do that, because what is a transgender locker room? What I can say, what we have done as a school district, is made plans to begin some remodeling or reconfiguring of each of the locker rooms in our high school to create safe changing places or private areas so people can change in privacy. And so I don't think that's a transgender locker room or boy or girl. It's just an area that gives kids, people who are changing clothes, a safe space to change, where they feel comfortable, don't feel like they're exposing themselves out in front of others. And so that's what I want to address to the board and to the community to make sure that's understood. I've taken several calls about that, so I wanted to address that to make sure people understand we're not making a transgender locker room, because that just isn't a thing. I think that would cause legal issues if we did try to do something like that. So, speaking of the Oregon Law Conference, right? And then an update on the Title 1C. As you know, I continue to meet with ODE as they have required, which I think is very good for us to hear about the migrant investigation that's going on. And I have also reached out to attorneys at the law firm Miller Nash in Portland to get their help with navigating some of the complexities that we're dealing with this. We want to make sure that our district and our finances are supported, and that our voices are heard. And so perhaps we can meet in executive session, hopefully, to discuss that. And so also, whether it's me or you, Mrs. Ramos, or any member of the board, about the bullying update, I think it's important that, I know there was a parent concern at one of our recent board meetings, expressing concerns about bullying and how we're dealing with that in our schools. And so We did have a board special session where we met with school board, and it was open session, but special, just not regular. And our principals were there. Susie, do you want to speak about that?
We met and had a very lengthy discussion. All the administrators were there. We came up with, each building has a specific procedure to deal with that. There is a complaint form that parents can fill out, and if that is filled out, it will be dealt with. And so we just wanted to make sure that each building kind of explained the procedure and how they handle bullying and what to do with it. So instead, we did meet, we did discuss it, and made sure that there was procedure in place. Somebody want to add anything else to that?
Well, and a text went out, I don't know if it was to parents or to the whole area, but I know I got it, that was saying if there were any issues to make sure that it was discussed and disclosed. I think one of the important things that I took away from that meeting was that just having a meeting with a student who might be causing trouble doesn't necessarily stop the trouble. If it continues to happen, there needs to be continued reporting, because otherwise if the school administrators don't hear that it's continuing, and then all of a sudden there's just behind the scenes gossiping of, oh, they didn't do anything, if they don't know that it's happening still, they can't continue to address it. And so that was a really important thing, to make sure that we continue to speak up if things continue to happen.
Thank you. Good point.
And I would like to say that I would like to see some uniformity in our discipline code from building to building to building. And I believe that our administrators have thought about this and are going to be working on that sort of thing. I think that the complaint procedure that's been put out is a good stepping stone towards this.
Thank you. And then I also wanted to just talk about the county truancy ordinance proposal. Recently, we were notified that there's been an interpretation of one of the Oregon statutes regarding student attendance and truancy, that by some judges across the state were interpreting that they were no longer able to issue fines or penalties to parents and students for lack of attendance at school. We've always had required mandatory attendance, and it just so happens that one of the judges in Malheur County was feeling the same as others in the state, saying I can no longer do that. And so the superintendents across the county, led by Mark Redmond, our ESD superintendent, have worked with Judge Goldthorpe, our district attorney. No? Yeah?
What's that?
Oh, sorry, you were shaking your head.
Oh, he's not a judge.
Oh, okay. And so he's our district attorney, excuse me. So we've been working with him in order to draft a county ordinance that does allow the county to issue fines to families. We are not interested in trying to punish parents. What we're interested in is trying to make sure that students are attending school, that there's some sort of requirement. If we say it's mandatory attendance, but there's no penalties for lack thereof, then how do you enforce that? And how do you guarantee that students are attending school or doing what they're supposed to do? So Mark Redmond, with some of the superintendents, will be at the county court this Wednesday morning at 9:30. If any of you are interested in attending that, he will be discussing that. We all will, previous to our county superintendent's meeting with the ESD. So if anyone, you're all invited to attend that if you'd like, to offer support if you're able. And then the last thing I have is for Mr. Hunter. We have invited him to present some of the data that he has been collecting through the years.
Okay. iReady. We presented to you on iReady probably before any of you guys were on the board. So it's mentioned a lot. And once in a while, a board member asked me something about it. So I thought it was worth spending a couple of minutes just to go over how it started, why we use it, how we know it's good. And I'll show you a couple of graphs just to give you an idea. Okay, so the iReady means three things right now. There's an iReady diagnostic test that we use in math at all grades K through 8. reading in grades 6 through 8 only, right now. There's also an iReady online instruction, which is part of our math instruction. And there's an iReady curriculum, like a textbook. I'm not going to talk about those. This year is the year we adopt instructional materials in math, so I don't know what we're going to adopt next year. All right? That's very much up in the air. But I will talk about the diagnostic test briefly, and you need to know a little bit of history about this. Oh, he's not here anymore. Mr. Draper was the one who introduced this to the district. He saw it at a conference, I think in 2013. The reading department at the middle school tried it, liked it, recommended the math department try it, we liked it. And in the 2014-15 school year, we adopted it school-wide, or we tried it school-wide. And that year, the elementary school piloted it in a couple of grades, and they went full-time on it the year after. So the very first thing we needed to do that first year we used it was test if it's valid. Does it actually measure what it purports to measure? Okay. Now, if you take an iReady score, you can convert that to an equivalent grade level, which, again, when I did that, it was a little bit iffy. I wasn't sure if what I was doing was valid in taking their scores and converting them to grades. So the very first thing we did after that first school year was say, how does the iReady test compare with the state test? Because if we're going to use it as our diagnostic, it better compare reasonably well. Okay? So here I'm going to show you data for 8th, 7th, 6th grade math that first year. I don't know how well you can see. Oh, how am I going to? Oh. Okay. So, you may not be able to see the numbers too well, but that's okay. Oh, sorry, I couldn't get a good wireless connection this afternoon, so I'm doing VGA, which isn't quite as pretty. But anyway, so what I've got across the bottom here, every one of these X's is a student. All the data I'm going to show you today is real data, but it's all anonymized. There is no way you can identify any students from. All right? Okay, so what here is what students scored on the iReady test. Okay, these are 8th graders, and this is where the test placed them. All right? And up here is what they got on the state test. Level 1, Level 2, Level 3, or Level 4. Okay? Level 3 and 4 are meeting, Level 1 and 2 are not. That's why I've drawn the line. So if you have a look here, 8th grade. Every student who tested above grade level 8.2 on the iReady passed on the state test. Every student who tested at 8 or below on the iReady, except for 3, didn't meet. That is freaking amazing correlation, right? To have this thing saying within 0.2 of a grade level, I can tell you whether they're going to meet or, okay? If you look at 7th grade, every student bar 1 that tested above 7.2 met on the state test. Every student bar 2 that tested below 7 didn't meet on the state test. You look at 6th grade, every student bar half a dozen who tested above 6.2 met. Every student who tested below 6.0 didn't meet. You don't see correlations like that, all right? And then, if we look at the elementary school, which adopted it the next year, this is 5th, 4th, 3rd grades, the spread is a little bit bigger, but the picture is the same, all right? We can speculate as to why the spread increases as you go down the grades, but the picture's similar even though the spread is a little bit bigger there, all right? So that's math, 2015, 2016. Let's have a look at reading for those same years. And I hope this is the reading tests. Grade 8 reading. Here we go. 876 reading. Now you'll notice the spread on the reading is bigger. Okay? There's more students who tested below 8 that met and more students who tested above 8.2 who didn't. But you have to remember the iReady is only a reading test and the state test is reading and writing. So you wouldn't expect the correlation to be quite so good. But again, pretty good, right? That was 2015. Let's have a quick look. I've done it a couple of times in between, but this is for last year. I only did math. I didn't do the reading, I'm afraid. I didn't know I was going to be presenting to the board. So anyway, so that's last year. And here we've got exactly the same picture. That correlation has stayed 8 to 8.2, 7 to 7.2, 6 to 6.2, okay? And the correlation at elementary's got even a little bit better. The spread on the elementary is smaller than it used to be. So iReady's had like 8 years of tuning. So that tells us that what I'm doing here is valid in converting the scores. It tells us the iReady is valid, correlate, and it also tells us that ODE is doing a good job, because when you've got those two that stay neck and neck, they're both doing a good job, even though the two tests are scored by different ways, okay? But what this allows us to do is, if I say your kid scored 7.0 on the iReady, are they on grade level or not? Do they need to be at 7.0 in September, 7.0 in May? But you can look here and say, if I take the middle of this, that tells me that a 5th grader needs to be at 5.1 in the end of March. A 4th grader needs to be 4.1 at the end of March. All right? Which means that I've got a way now of mapping all the way from K to 8. Whatever time of year a student takes a test, we can see whether they're on or below, above or below where they need to be. Does that make sense? If they take it in October, I can say, well, in October they need to be at a 6.3 or a 7.2, whatever. All right? Okay. So here's how we can use that. Is the other thing we can do that iReady can't do is we can merge data from different schools. Okay, for FERPA and stuff like that, they can't do that. So I've been able to merge data from the elementary and the middle school, which means now we can track kids all the way from K to 8. And I'm just going to show you 3 representative types of graph, okay? You can't identify students from here. So here we've got the green line is where a student needs to be on grade level, all right? And this goes all the way from 1st grade to 8th grade. Okay. And these are 3 common types of graphs we see quite a lot of. This one here. This is a kid, and Mr. Cleaver was the first one who pointed this out when I first did these. He said, whoa, when you look at these, any kid that's solidly on grade level at 3rd grade is going to be there all the way through. Okay? And that's pretty much true. Look at almost all of them. If they're solidly on grade at 3rd grade, they're going to be good all the way through. Because if you give a teacher a student who's already on grade, most of us can keep them on grade, right? You give me a student who's 6 months below, and I'm going to struggle to help that kid move up all that much. Does that make sense? Okay. So if you guys can get them on grade level by 3rd grade, right? So if we have money to spend, to me, it's much better to spend the money before 3rd grade, get them there, than spending a fortune later to try and remediate. Does that make sense? Because if you've got a kid who's a year below, you're going to need 4 really good teachers in a row to try and get them back, right? And just the law of averages says who's going to get 4 excellent teachers in a row? Yeah. Okay. So that's one typical picture. Here's another typical picture, and I can't tell you offhand what kind of this student this is, but here's a student who is reached here and then made very little progress. There's good chance a student like this has a learning disability of some kind. All right? So our special ed departments look at these, because just depending how that goes, they can use that to identify kids who need remediation or help, okay? So, and then the last one here, this kid seemed to be doing pretty much okay, and we've got a bunch of graphs that look like this, and suddenly something at the start of 2020 happened, and they lost 18 months. Okay? And we got a bunch of these. There's a lot of graphs. You can see kids, boom. All right? And then really difficult to get them back. Okay? So that's kind of interesting. Yeah? Okay, so there's 3 of those. And then I'll show you a couple of big picture. Back when we started doing iReady did not have a good way of graphing the data. So here, can you even see that? Is it? Can you actually see the
You can
colors?
see the colors, yeah.
Okay, good. So this is a big picture graph for a whole grade. Shows every student in a grade. All these names are fake, by the way. And I'm not going to even tell you, I can't even remember what year data this is actually. But anyway, this shows every student. And from the color code, red, yellow, green, blue, you can look here and see they've done one test at the start of the year, and you can immediately see your kids. And typically any kid who's above about here at the start of the year is on grade level. All right? And it shows you their relative scores in the 4 strands for math, number and operations, algebra, geometry, data and statistics. Okay? That looks a little overwhelming the first time you see one. Once you've seen a few of them, it's just, we've been looking at them for years, okay? So I'll show you one more of those, which is reading. I hope. Okay, this is reading, and this is 7th grade. These kids have all taken the test twice. All right? The reading gives you an overall score, stuff which is really useful for us at the middle school: vocabulary, comprehension for information, comprehension for literature. And then 2 here which are really better at the lower grades: phonics and high frequency words. As you can see, almost all of these kids have just got a grey line going across there, which means they either maxed out the test or they weren't even tested because they were high enough on these other things they didn't need to. Okay? And this one, because the kids have taken the test twice, every one you can see a dot where they took the first test and then a little square where they took the second one. So you can scan down here and you can see it, get a picture of what kind of gains you're getting. All right? And for every student here, you can see where they tested the first time, where they tested the second time. And here's a student that tested red and is now in the pink. We like to see when those colours change. Okay? So there you go. That's, and we can generate those now fairly quickly whenever we redo the test. Okay. Anything else you need to know?
I got a question.
Yes.
First of all, thanks for putting all this together. It obviously took a while. With all of this information you've been able to compile, do you think we're taking full advantage of what you got here by looking for those students that are possible students that need help? Are we taking full advantage of all the information that you've compiled?
Probably not. Am I taking all the? Probably not. There's a lot of stuff in there.
There's a lot of stuff in there.
Yes, and we do. I mean, we do look at these. These are really useful for placing kids into classes, right? Because when a parent says, my kid needs to be in, we can have a look here and say, well, looky here, your kid is testing here. They're on the margin. If they're going to get parental support and develop a good work ethic, which we never know coming into the middle school whether they are or not, then they'll be fine, right? Sometimes a parent will have a student down here and will say, look, they're just going to get lost, right? So it's really helpful for placing. For reading, when the kids come into the middle school, they're all tested. Do the iReady test, so that we've got an idea of what classes to put in.
It's actually where we identified one of the changes in our math program, like all 6th graders start in Math 1 now. We found that our 6th graders, that some of them were meeting as 5th graders, weren't meeting as 6th graders, because when they rolled up into Math 2, they weren't covering the strand data, the strand information that was covered in 6th grade, because they passed and jumped over it. Even though we circled back, picked that piece up, it wasn't intentional enough. They were missing out on some of those basic functions that they pick up later, but they missed it for a year, and it really showed a gap in their education. So now they'll start out in 6th grade, and then we move a group forward into math 2 as a group. So we move a whole 6th grade group. The other thing we don't do is we now don't dump the higher performing kids on the lower performing 7th graders. They need extra help, so we're able to actually give them what they need, both groups what they need, rather than trying to blend them together and teach multiple lessons in the same class. So I think that's been effective. We'll see. The data is kind of skewed because of the COVID results, so we're trying to see what that'll do. So this is the second year we've done that. So hopefully it helps us with that trend. But that wouldn't have been found without having this information going.
No, it's good. Yeah, it's good information. It's good stuff.
That's a great question. I don't mean to interrupt you, but I do want to say this. I don't mean to speak for anybody else, but Mr. Hunter is a very intelligent man, right, with all of this stuff. I have a PhD, and I don't always read all that. I mean, to get the implications that Mr. Hunter is telling us about, we need him to explain that to all of us, to break it down. Again, I'm not speaking for anybody else, because some people probably can read that a lot better than I can. But I think the correlations that you showed are so powerful in studying that data to know how we can help our students and in what areas. And so I think that's helpful to me as the lead of this district. So thank you.
Know that we appreciate all your hard work.
Thank you, Mr.
Pleasure.
Any other questions?
Oh. Oh! Isn't that a pretty picture? Who planted all those trees? Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Well, where is it?
That's the house where I was born.
Oh my goodness.
I planted all those in 1986 before it came to stay. Very cool. Okay. Thank you, guys.
Thank
you.
you.
Thank you.
Ms. Rideau, you're up.
So tonight I have financials for you through November 30th. The biggest thing that I spoke about last month was the amount of taxes we received for the month of November. So our general fund received a little over $858,000 worth of taxes. So that bumped our revenue for the month of November to over $2 million for the month. And then you might have had our expenses, which of course our biggest expenses are payroll, our salaries and our payroll costs. We had a very large payroll last month as we ran normal payroll, and then we paid out extra duty contracts. First round of those. So we brought in a little over $2 million. We sent out a little over $1.3 million, bumping that cumulative balance to a little over $3.1 million as we move forward through the year. After the general fund report is just the breakdown of our local government investment pool account that houses all of our money. And you can see the report from the county of the breakdown of taxes that we received in that account for the month of November. I always present a operating statement for the middle school bond account. So we started the account a little over $86,000 November 1st. And we got a bunch of taxes of over $326,000 in the month of November. So we ended November 30th at a little, almost $413,000. And we have that debt service payment that we owe, a little over $90,000. I have already paid that as it's December 12th. So projected upcoming expenditures. So our current bond balance right now is a little over $322,000. And we'll just continue collecting those taxes the rest of the remainder of the fiscal year, and then pay our next debt service payment in June. Our early Head Start ended the month a little over $34,846. We came in tonight, you saw the diapers, but if you're wondering why we ordered diapers, that's for that. Food service ended $51,578 for the month of November.
They're doing well despite the fact of cost increases in food.
A lot of effort from our food service staff to serve more breakfast, they're taking breakfast to the kids, there's a lot of things they're doing, we appreciate it.
And then following that report is our payroll report for the month of November. And then after that is our approval of the bills. Everything that was paid out for the month of November. So no surprises. And can I just say I'm glad the audit is done. So, thank you for listening to Mr. Hoyt. I've worked with him a lot. So appreciate it. Do you guys have questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Crystal.
Okay, next we have the consent agenda. You guys will take a look at that. And if someone would like to make a motion to approve that as is.
So moved.
For a second,
Second.
all in favor? The motion has carried. There was no old business.
It is.
There is.
Yes. Staff bonus.
Mrs. Norris would like to talk about the staff wellness.
At our last meeting, Melissa Vargas presented gave a presentation on staff wellness and her concerns. I did take the opportunity to meet with her. 2 years ago, she and I were on a district priority committee addressing wellness. And so I took the opportunity to meet with her and to find out more about what her concerns were. She emphasized that there is an increasing need for wellness amongst our staff, some of it having to do with just simple things like time management, stress management, some of it having to do with burnout. I emphasized to her that we needed to move quickly on this because there are 5 months left in our school year. I would like to keep our staff together as much as possible. She and I talked about some different things. One of the things that she emphasized was communication, better communication between the buildings and amongst our staff within the district. Hopefully tying some wellness things into the professional development, for instance, just something on stress management or communication skills. A lot of these things can be addressed by staff we have already here, because several of you are pretty experienced in things like management of anxiety. And I would look at coaches as being quite talented in how to manage anxiety, especially for their athletes. One of the other things she talked about was increasing the bonding with perhaps things that are more fun for staff. And I'm not just talking about teachers, I'm talking about the entire staff. She said if the board, the administration, feel that this is wise to move forward on, she would be willing to begin to set up a committee of different members from the different buildings, from the administration, potentially from the board, to work on something staff wellness, and hopefully it would be rolled out in early January. And that if it were okay, she would like to send out a survey to staff to find out what their wellness, what their concept of wellness is. And if there is enough buy-in, and the committee felt that there was enough buy-in, that we go ahead and move forward with some of these processes. Whatever is done, if anything is done, there will be measurement, there will be accountability, there will be transparency, and it will be at low cost because There's nothing budgeted for this. But as I said, we have a lot of staff who are well versed in a lot of these things, and we rely upon them to help do some of these things. And I'm asking if there is accommodation for this type of thing from the board, from the administration, and if there's buy-in from the staff, that Mrs. Vargas would like to move ahead. So,
Okay.
comments from,
Yeah, I appreciate sharing that. We're having ad council tomorrow morning at 9 o'clock, so this is something we can discuss, see how everybody feels about that.
yes, Melissa couldn't be here this evening, but I'm sure that she'd be available to, to answer some of these questions. And I would like to say that this sounds like a nice challenge that's a little bit different for the staff and for the ad council, because it's a different area. When you talk about wellness, you're talking about stress, but you're also talking about nutrition, fitness, and that sort of thing. So.
I was just gonna make a comment. At one of the school districts I worked at, I think it was actually led through the health insurance company that we had, but they had an app out there that you had to, no one was forced to do this, but it was kind of a fun thing where you could download the app and you could join on a team. There was teams of 4 of who was getting the most steps, which team was getting the most steps per day. And it just so happens in my building, I got on a team. I was kind of reluctant, like, this is dumb, I'm not going to do this. But I finally did it. Unfortunately, I didn't do it soon enough to get on the same team as the custodian, because she had like 30,000 steps in a day. So my team lost, but because they had the custodian on their team. But it was kind of a fun thing. It honestly was fun. It built not just health, paying attention to your steps per day, but also just conversations about that. It was a lot of fun, actually.
And I will say, almost everyone has a smartphone. And there's an app for counting steps on your smartphone. At least my son tells me there is, because I don't count steps.
I would like to add just what she said was really powerful, where she didn't know what she needed, and it took that reflection. But if there is a committee that can help come to that consensus or that reflection of oneself of what's needed and have peer support, I think that would be big.
Thank you.
Thank you. OSBA elections.
I would like to encourage our board to vote. Chris Cronin is the person running from our area. She is, as I've said before, very knowledgeable. She's a good speaker. John Day. And, she's done well. She's been in this position for not all that long right now. But I would highly recommend her. I also went through the resolution, the OSB legislative priority resolution, and it is very, I believe, suitable for the things that we are facing. We went to that, Susie, you remember, and Darren, you remember, we went to that committee that talked about just the Region 1 priorities. And these fit right into the legislative priorities that are outlined in this resolution. So I would encourage us to vote for that also.
So we need to vote tonight?
Yes, we need to vote tonight. It needs to get to them by the 15th, I believe.
So is there a form that we got? Or just...
You guys just need to vote and I submit it on.
Thank you very much. So do we need to make a motion or just, would someone like to make a motion to not vote for Chris Cronin? Is your last name?
Yes.
Cronin.
I would make a motion that we vote for Chris Cronin as a representative from Region 1. And do I need to separate these into 2? Okay.
Second, I really liked her. She was a new person. Okay, all in favor? Okay, motion is passed.
And I would like to make a motion that we support the resolution for the OSBA legislative priorities.
Anybody want to second that?
A second.
All in favor? Okay, motion is carried. Okay. There's no board study, so I guess we will adjourn and go. Do you have a question?
Well, I was just curious if you guys wanted to address everything in question last month, because I was really curious if you, the board, were going to stand for or against the CDC, since it's saying it's up to boards. And I noticed that wasn't addressed.
So, I think that's a really good question. I think we don't have enough information on that yet. If that is, I think what we did say is, of course, if the law is the law, we're required to follow the law. But if we are given an option, then the board obviously would consider the option. I'm not going to speak for the board. I know where I stand on that, to not make it a requirement for people to get the COVID vaccine, that it needs to be an individual choice. But our board would rule on that as a board. And so, again, I'm not going to speak for the board. The board would vote. But that's a good question. Like, I don't know. I don't. You probably have more information than I do as to where that is in the requirement stage. But I don't think that's going to be a requirement. If it is, I think you said that it's an option at this point.
From what I understand so far, it's saying that boards can choose. It's not, I mean, the CDC is recommending it, but from what I understand, school boards have if our board said, hey, we don't want to enforce this, then that is how it stands. And so that's why I was curious.
I think
if it came
per
to
county,
it,
per school board, I don't know.
And I think as long as that's the case, and like Dr. Johnson, I'm not going to talk for everybody, but as long as we have the option to leave that in the parents' hands, I believe that's probably what we will do.
Nina, there's not a vote necessary because that's where we already stand. It's not changing anything.
As of right now, it is up to the parents, and I can't see us saying we're going to require.
And I can't see the state saying
I think right now there's no requirement right now. It hasn't come to us as a decision yet.
We hope we don't have to make that decision.
But thank you. Is there anything else we missed?
I kind of think the transgender thing was kind of skated over, but, you know.
Oh.
A little bit.
Oh.
I mean, I understand where I'm just asking, is there protections for all students, no matter what they are identifying as?
You know,
in an environment where you would take off your clothes, I'm asking if there is protections for everybody. That's my concern. I mean, regardless, everybody wants their child protected, right? That's what I'm saying. I'm not trying to make it a political thing. I'm saying are females that identify as females, males that identify as males, and those that identify outside of what they were born with, if all of these are going to be protected in an environment where there's clothing taken off.
Changing in PE
or after sports or what have you. That's where I'm asking if someone is identifying as something different than their assigned, I don't play politically correct very well, so I don't know how to say it and not offend. How is it if you have natural born females with someone who says that they feel they're female and saying that they deserve to be in there? How would you make a protection for that person and for those that I personally know that my daughter would never want to change in front of somebody. One, she would go change probably by herself. But I'm just saying, where's the protection? Do we have something for that?
Yeah, I think we do. I mean, right now, what we ask is for the teachers to be either in the locker room or close to the locker room where people can go for help if there is help needed or wanted. What we are moving to do as a board is looking to expend some money to remodel the shower area to make some changing spaces for anybody. Like, I hear what you're saying. We don't want anybody to regardless of how they identify, right? We want everybody to feel wanted, safe, needed here at our school. And so what we're trying to do is create space where people have, because right now, I mean, I can't speak about the girls' locker room because I've not been in there, but I think sometimes girls right now are going into the stalls to change. That's not a lot of room in there, right? And there's a toilet and your clothes can drop and all sorts of stuff, right? So we're trying to create a space where there is an actual changing space where they have some protection to be able to change in privacy from PE clothes to their school clothes or from school clothes into game uniforms, because it's not just PE, sometimes it's competition, right, that we have. So currently the state of Oregon, OSAA is allowing, per state law, allowing competition of transgender students in the sport of their choice. And so it could become an issue for some people where it's an uncomfortable. So that's why we are looking at remodeling the locker rooms to accommodate people to feel safe and private, if they're uncomfortable with that.
So it's basically a work in progress. We're not ignoring the situation. We are working on it. And I think that we've stepped up to the situation, and I appreciate what the administration has done, and they've kept us informed, but it is a work in progress.
Unfortunately, we can't get the construction done overnight. It takes some time. But the other issue is we have to get engineers in here, because there's some repiping of water pipes from the showers. We're not trying to take the showers out. We want people to still have showers, even though, I mean, I can speak from my generation. We were required to shower. We were actually talking to our daughter about that. She says, "Ew, gross. You showered in front of your team?" It's like, yeah, we did that back then. Anyway, they don't do that these days, but we want them to be able to have the option, and we also want them to have the option to change in an area that helps them feel comfortable. Privacy, yeah. I don't want to skate over it. I think I'm answering it, but I don't know.
That's better than, I just want the kids to be protected. All of them.
Yeah, and I think our principals could say, can we guarantee that the PE teachers are there or in the locker room or nearby? So an adult is nearby. I don't know if they're in the locker room, because that's awkward too, right? PE teachers don't want to be accused of looking where they're not supposed to look, but they want to be there where kids can feel safe and go get some adult help if they need it, right?
Right. Are there any other questions? Okay, this meeting is adjourned. We will meet in executive session in 5 minutes. So I need to
say we're going to break.
Okay, we're going to meet ORS 192.6602A to consider the employment of a public officer for the staff of the region and to consult with council concerning current possible.
I think we're. Thank you.